Welcome to OverSeasoned.
It's only going to take one take.
I actually kicked him out of the restaurant.
Why?
Gotta bitch to someone.
Gotta bitch to somebody, and I'm good to bitch to.
I thought you were from Spain.
Yes, I am.
Oh.
Sí soy.
Gotcha.
Soy chorizo.
Oh no.
You've gone into Martha Stewart land.
It's good. It's just not live.
Whatever.
Okay.
It's like a scene from Cocoon. Like the sun goes down.
You don't want to get blacklisted.
You know what, Mr. President? Is this what you want? Welcome to OverSeasoned. This is Xavier. I'm here with Tony. And we're excited to have all of you join us. And by the way, Spotify's doing all this year-end stuff, and I want to throw out some thanks before we get going to a couple friends that were kind enough to show me, to prove to me, that they are avid listeners. And this is not by coercion. This just happens to be because they enjoy the show. Two that come off the top of mind are
wait. How would you coerce them? How would you coerce them?
I don't know, like a giveaway of some sort or whatnot. But
okay.
in this case,
So
it's just because
true
they
and valid.
actually enjoy us. They enjoy
What's
us.
wrong with them?
I don't know what's wrong with them, but they're the best people. They're actually so one comes from the wine world and one comes from the music world. So let's start with the wine world friend. Maria Pepe, thanks for listening in. We appreciate you very much. And the other is the best rhythm guitarist and singer, perhaps, definitely in Philadelphia, perhaps in the entire world, Mr. Jimmy Sutcliffe. Jam Sutcliffe, I know you're out there. Thanks for enjoying the show. Please send my best to your beautiful pup on your next walk. Anyway, so we're going to be airing out a little bit of dirty laundry today. Why? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Well,
who's dirty
I
laundry?
will be.
Your dirty laundry? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
well, yes. I think there's a lot of processing that happens on OverSeasoned radio. You know, there's a lot of things that get aired out, and some of them are not things that I'm necessarily proud of, but this is how you grow, right? This is what they say, Tony. This is how you grow, right? Is holding yourself accountable. And, you know,
I think what you're saying is I should be charging you for these sessions.
You know, I am, yes. And hopefully the copay, you know, I know how New York gets with all the health insurance stuff. Hopefully the copay reaches you, you know. But I think what we were going to talk about on the show is collecting, achieving the unattainable.
Let me set the stage here. It's
Okay.
post Thanksgiving Monday. Everyone's kind of getting back to work, right? We're all kind of back into it, right? You know, it's been a nice long weekend. Everyone's like, "Where's X?" I don't know. I sent him a message. I haven't heard back from him for a few hours. I hope he's okay. Where's X? Well, he was supposed to be on this phone call, but he missed it. Well, I don't know. Have you heard from him? Like the internal office communication was just like, where's X? What is he up to? What is he doing? Because he's nowhere to be found on a Monday after a holiday, as we're all kind of gearing up and getting back to work. And you're just MIA. I think we heard from you around like 6 p.m. that night. And I was like, thank God he's still alive. Tell us what you're up to. Was it worth it?
So
we'll let the audience decide.
We'll let the audience decide if this is madness, or if in reality I did something good. I know it's not the latter. But okay. Let me just start by saying this, right? I don't know what it is about humans. You know, Tony, you constantly hit on the fact that sommeliers are just like we're just
baseball cards.
We're just trading baseball cards, right?
Cards. Yes. Here's the stat,
and it's interesting.
Here's the terroir. Here's this one did this one. This
one, this vintage,
you know,
blah blah.
Salutes the sun facing the west on this time, and you know makes the grapes grow this certain way, and all this.
That is so true. Sometimes you don't want the bunches to grow really close together. You need a little air going through each of the grapes, you know?
Don't you always?
Yeah. And sometimes you want the foliage, you know, you want the canopy to grow, right? So there's just a lot of things. There's a lot of things, Tony. And it reminds me, you know, we've been in this we've been in this world long enough to see how these things evolve, right? And I often think back to, it's kind of like Bitcoin, right? Don't you wish?
Are we going to get into what happened?
We will.
We got 45 minutes, dude. Right? 8 minutes of burnt away. What happened? Where were you on Monday?
Okay.
Where were you at?
So you just want to get to it, huh? You don't want to just
tell me where you were. What happened? You're making it seem like there's a body buried somewhere that you're going to ask me to help you move soon or something. Like, what's up?
You'd be so lucky, Tony, to move this body. Okay, so here's what happened. So I signed up for an app called Wine Searcher, right? I've used the tool. It's essentially it's an online platform that scrapes the internet for all kinds of online wine offerings and prices across all kinds of stores. Some may ship to you, some may not ship to you, some are international, some are on auction, some are retail, etc. Right? So there's this platform called Wine Searcher. And for anybody who doesn't know me, I love wine, right? So it's just one of those things. And it's my baseball card. I do love sneakers, but nowhere near as much wine. I mean, I love wine, okay? So anyway, there's been this elusive experience that our great friend Ronaldo Sanders was actually, there's this wine, right, which is like this, it is this, what we call a unicorn wine, okay? It's called a unicorn wine. And this wine is called Soldera, right? Soldera.
I've definitely heard of it.
Soldera is a Brunello del Montalcino turned Toscana wine, right? But that's a long story. But it's a mythical wine. It's incredibly hard to find. It is it's only exacerbated by the fact that about 10 years ago, one of the workers from the winery had a freak out moment, or no one's quite sure as to what exactly happened. But there was a moment where somebody who worked at the winery went into the bodega, like went into the cellar and like just started opening shit because he was mad or like he wanted to vandalize. And it only added to the mystique, right? Because
and
what
raise
ended
the
up
prices,
happening,
right?
Ridiculously, right?
Reduce the supply, increase
Correct.
Yeah.
Interesting wrinkle to all this, Tony.
Funny how they had more sales that year than ever before.
Well, it's like you say with the truffles, right? This year, too much rain, right?
Yeah.
Truffle price is high.
Yeah.
Oh, this year, not enough rain.
Yeah.
Truffle price is high, right? So this Brunello that turned Tuscan wine, right? This guy, Gianfranco Soldera, right, is this really opinionated and stout little Italian guy that has become famous as a result of this wine that he makes, that he, his eponymous wine, Soldera, no? And it's what we find often in the wine world is like it's just this incredibly elegant version of a wine, right? So Rayas is another example of a unicorn wine, and it is just like, it far surpasses what your expectation of the wine's expression is, because it is so light on its feet, and so it's not like rustic, and it's just about finesse, right? These are incredibly finesse wines. So
but it also must be very limited in supply and hard to find, or is it just?
Yes, it is, absolutely. So in this
case,
it
just expensive?
Both.
But you can find it everywhere.
No. It's not like Dom Perignon where it's expensive and you can find it everywhere. This is a wine that I've only seen in the flesh a couple times and experienced once before. So Ronaldo Sanders was kind enough to open a bottle with me on a trip this year of 1993 Soldera, back when it was called Brunello del Montalcino, and that's a whole nother podcast. So we'll save that for another podcast. Was gorgeous, right? It's just silky, elegant. The finish lasts forever. Even at 30 years old, in not a great vintage, the wine really just showed so well. And it started
Did you
a
have
little
it just
bit.
all by itself? Was it part of a meal?
It was part of a meal. It was a part of a meal where it is the first time all year that I overcooked a steak. I'm gonna admit that now on live. Well, not live, but you know what I mean. I'm admitting that I overcooked a dry aged porterhouse, and I felt really bad about it. But the wine more than made up for my amateur cook temp.
Indiscretion.
Right? Yes. So Soldera, what makes it so special is, first off, they make about anywhere between 12,000 and 15,000 bottles a year, which is about 1,000 cases, right? And if you think about that, trying to figure out how to equally export that wine from, let's say, just from the vineyard in Italy, there is, I mean, these allocations that go out turn into like these wild vendor to supplier, or vendor to supplier, vendor to restaurant customer conversations. And restaurants in general almost always get these super highly allocated wines. So they're hard to find, right? And of course, when you get to a restaurant, there is, a lot more markup that happens, right? So, what might be a wine on the open market, let's say for 500 on release, you get to a restaurant, it could be $2,000, could be 2,500. It just ends up being, the markup in a restaurant, of course, is much more than in a retail environment, right? Usually. So anyway, I had this wine with Ronnie. It is an incredible experience. And my compulsion, my pathological, like deep-seated need to just, follow this rabbit hole turns into me reading all about Gianfranco Soldera, watching a bunch of videos about him and what he's made in his wines and the people involved and why are the wines special. And, it just becomes the Pappy Van Winkle of Brunello for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've already had a Pappy Van Winkle experience where I wish I would have purchased fucking all the cases that I ever had access to, right?
Yeah.
There was a moment in time where you could walk into a Philadelphia state-run liquor store and they would have Pappy 23, Pappy 15, Pappy 20 year, the rye, the 13. It was just sitting on the shelf. Yeah. Just sitting on the shelf. Nobody gave a fuck about it. You know who ruined that?
Sommeliers.
Your favorite. No, this time it wasn't sommelier. This time it was a chef who ruined this.
Who was it?
Anthony Bourdain. I forget which freaking show it was, but he did this whole thing on Pappy. He actually did it in a Philly restaurant. And from that moment on, nowhere to be found, Pappy, right? I actually had 5 bottles of 23 year that, as we were trying to get Shoebox off the ground, was how I paid my rent.
I remember this.
Yes. So
he helped you out there.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks, Anthony. That's funny. So thank you, Anthony Bourdain, for helping me pay my rent. I mean, finally, something that you contributed to the culinary world. So, so after that whole experience, right, I now look at these wines and, back then I think I sold the Pappy for, let's call it $1,500. I think it was $1,500. And I thought that was wildly inappropriate because I bought those bottles for like $250, right?
Yep.
So now, as the world seems to get more and more connected, sommeliers seem to ruin more and more things in terms of like wines that are like hard to collect or hard to find, etc. I've decided if I have an opportunity to jump on something that is special, I might as well do it. So Soldera has been on my list, right?
So you have this app and you're just kind of trolling through it on a regular basis, looking for who has this wine where at what price.
Well, so even worse, I'll get an automatic alert, right, when these wines show up. So they must have some scraper, or they might have an API connection or something, right, where they're ingesting like these price lists from multiple stores all the time.
Pretty amazing, actually, to have that kind of. That's a lot. That's a lot of reach.
It's a lot of reach, right? It's also all it does is scratch my inner addict, right? Because I'm like, now I don't want to put any more alerts in, right? Because this is what happens. So it's Thanksgiving. We're crushing food, enjoying ourselves, etc. And what happens at like 8 something is I get an alert. It says Soldera is available, right? And what happened was when I created this alert, I didn't put a specific state that I needed it to come to. I just put Soldera. Let me know when things pop up for it. So in this case, 2018 Soldera was available. And 2018 is the last year that Gianfranco, the old man who founded the vineyard, it was the first year, the last year that he was involved in the harvest, right? So he passed away in 2019 on February 16th, pretty close to an important day, right? And so I saw, holy shit, not only is it Soldera, but it's Gianfranco's last harvest, right? And the price was magnificent, $450. Now, of course, you say to yourself, that's ridiculous, you piece of shit. How could you possibly spend anything over $30 on a bottle of wine? Well, here's why. Because the very next availability of this wine is like $1,200. It's incredibly expensive. And it's hard to find. And I did see it in Vegas for a convention I went to on a couple wine lists. And it was $4,000, $5,000 plus for a single bottle, right? So I saw, okay, here's the deal. Like, we do a raffle for this wine. So you have to sign up to the mailing list and blah, 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 blah.
Why do you think they had it so inexpensively on their list?
I really don't know. And so I called, and they happened to be open the next morning. And long story short, whoever's out there listening to this, you better not steal this little inside trick. But you know what? I know you will. And I'll meet you in the store. All right. Anyway, so Soldera decided, not Soldera, I'm sorry, Binny's decided to put this wine available, right? But here is the little nuance that I wasn't prepared for. I said, hey, I'd like you to send this to New Jersey, blah, blah, blah. And they say, no, Illinois doesn't allow us to ship outside of the state.
The liquor stuff is so confusing and convoluted. It's crazy. Right. I was just dealing with something with a medical record where they can't email things, right? You have to go there and pick up the CD. But then when I went to go pick up the CD, they said, we don't allow that either. We have to mail it. It's like,
what?
Yeah. Anyway, it's the complexities involved with these kinds of things.
These legislated bureaucracy.
Yeah. And how AI is gonna, solve the world. It's like, really?
Yeah. No.
Really?
Yeah. So I have a conversation with this person, and then they're like, no, you have to pick up in store. I'm like, okay. So then
wait, I might have missed something. Did you already win the raffle, or do you know how many people are included in the raffle? Or
so what he told me was that you sign up for this thing, and essentially, what would happen before in the past is one person would go across all the different stores and buy the allocation in one shot. Just right. Let's say they get 12 bottles in the state. This person would buy them all and then go pick them up at each of the stores. And they wanted to avoid having that happen again, where one person hoards it all. So they would put limits on how much you could buy. And then, so he entered me in, and it might just be a gimmick, honestly, to get your on the mailing list too. But sure. Yes, I enter, and they're like, hey, you have an allocation of 3 available to you. Would you like to purchase it? So I purchase it. I go on a link. I purchase it. And then I get an email back that says, you have 48 hours to pick this up, or we're going to release it.
And keep all your money.
Well, I don't know how that works. But then, of course, I'm like, okay, so there's Soldera sitting in a store somewhere in Illinois that is waiting for me to enjoy in the future. Maybe, Tony, we'll have to drink one together.
I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah, right? So then, of course, I go through a panic, and then I call back to the store, and I'm like, listen, guys, I ordered Soldera. It's at your store. Here's my name. They look it up, and they're like, yeah, you usually have 48 hours to order, but it's Thanksgiving and it's busy. Like, if you'd like, I can put a note in the system and we can extend it.
Like,
I'm
they
like,
have
please
your
do
money
that.
though at this point, right? Or they
Well,
don't complete
but I
the
think they would
transaction until you show
release
up.
the funds and put it back on the shelf just to avoid people like buying stuff and letting it sit there, right?
No,
I don't know.
get that, but still,
Yeah,
it's like they still had your money, and then the 48
I
hour thing seems to
know.
be a little like
I
in your
didn't.
week.
I wasn't gonna tempt fate,
Of
right?
course not.
So what I did was I took points and I bought flights, and then I took points that I had on the Marriott app and got a shitty little hotel. So it went as this, right? So I took a flight on Sunday night, which is supposed to be the heaviest traveling day of the Thanksgiving season, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, and I land in brutally cold Chicago. And then
Were you
from there,
prepared? Or are you wearing shorts like that time we
no,
went
I was
camping in the
prepared.
desert?
I was
Okay, good.
prepared. And so I landed, I hopped in a rental car, and then I went to this shitty little hotel, a Fairfield Inn, but like a Fairfield Inn that must have been built in like 1989. Like it was just a
This
little
feels
bit.
very underground. It feels like not quite right. You know what I mean? It
Oh,
feels like
dude,
so below board.
I
But it's not.
I
It's not.
I
It's
want
just the way
I
it
want to
works.
say I've never done this, and I feel like a little bit like an addict, like admitting all of this, that I went through all this for 3 bottles of wine.
I
But I'll
think you got a
continue
good deal.
before.
I don't, I think you got a good deal. So it'd be different if it was like, that 4 grand price range. You just had to have it no matter what. But
Well,
you
on
saw a good deal and jumped on it.
and specifically in this case, like it's like if you don't jump on it, you're not going to be able to have the wine. Like everybody's
What do you
constantly
think?
searching for it.
What do you think would have been the line where you would have let it go? Like, what cost do you think would have been like, not going to do it this time?
$600.
Really?
Yeah, $600 because it's just in this case for $450. Like it felt so worth going after, right?
Gotcha.
And it was so anyway. I land at this shitty little hotel. I go to bed and
Were you worried?
wake up
Did you
early
like
in the
get
next.
like extra things to like lock the
I
door?
called them. I called them before I took my flight. So I flew from Tampa to Chicago, and I said, "Listen, I'm about to hop on a flight to come pick this wine up. I want to be sure that wine is still in the store with my name on it." And they said, "Let me check." And it was like 2 minutes. I was sitting on there, and I'm like driving to the airport. And I'm like, dude, if they don't have this fucking wine, I gotta like unwind this entire fucking contrived thing I just did, which is like a flight, a rental car, a hotel, like all this stuff, right? I'm like, please have it, please. Finally gets on, and they're like, yeah, we have it. 3 bottles is sitting in the office for you. Yes, right.
Do you think that was that's all they had, or did they divvy it up
Yes.
between the other? Okay. So
Oh, well,
you also won the raffle.
So they said that they got 12 bottles that was split
Okay.
up across 4 stores. So 3 packs that were that were essentially split up amongst the state. Sorry, 4 3-packs that were split up amongst the state. So 4 different stores got 3 bottles, right? And I think so. This store in Orland Park was like a solid almost hour away from O'Hare Airport, and was like in like a weird little suburb, right? And I'm like, yeah, well, if so, the other stores that, I got the whole story because like I'm there for this, right? So they told me that a store in Lincoln Park got some, a store downtown got some, another store in Evanston got some, and like
Did
somehow
these not show up on your app too?
They were already sold, gone, in and out.
They got sold. Got it.
Yes. So this
How
was
many
the
bottles would you have gone for at that price range? Had there been 12 available, would you just couldn't have been able to contain yourself and just would have grabbed them all?
Probably, yeah. If they had 12 bottles, I would have got them all, and then I would have sold 6 of them and probably covered the cost of the entire thing.
Sweet.
But in this case, I got 3, and anyway. So I go to the store, and early in the morning. I walk in and listen, I don't know if how often any of you have walked into a liquor store at like 9, 10 in the morning, but that is America. Like, I'm like looking at like some guy who I know works in constructions walking in. He's walking out with a bottle of Svedka. I'm like, this is not good. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel, I, I definitely didn't feel like high society buying highly allocated, really hard, like collectible Brunello. That's not who's in the store at 9, 10 in the morning, right? So I'm like looking around, and it's a bunch of booze hounds, like, and I like walk up to the counter, and it's a big, beautiful store. I'd never been to a Binny's. These stores are fantastic, like warehouse with like. You ever been to a Total Wine before, Tony?
Sure, of course.
Think of that, but like times 10. It was crazy, the store, right? And so I go to the front, and I'm like, hey, I have an order, right? Here's my ID and my credit card that I used to pay. This is what they told me online that I need to present to you. And then they're like, oh, it's got to be in the cellar. So we walk over to the cellar. They have this big glass encased room in the back, and they've got all kinds of cool wines back there, of course. And they're looking and looking. And the guy who walked me back there was like, so what are you looking for? I'm like, oh, no, I ordered some wine. He's like, you like a cab or something? Like, no. I got Soldera, sir. It is a Tuscan wine that is incredibly difficult to find. I cannot believe your store had it.
That was going to be one question. Like, where do you think this wine was before it got into the store?
I'm sure it was at the distributor. I'm sure the distributor,
like how do just 9 bottles get released somewhere, right? How does that work?
Listen, I'm sure the distributor got 36 bottles. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. Binny's has like, I want to say 50 stores in Illinois, and they're all these huge warehouses. So even though typically it wouldn't show up in a retail store, I'm sure that the distributor has to toe this line of, man, Binny's gives us a ton of business. We got to give them some of these things so they feel like we're playing ball with them, And so anyway,
what do you think Binny buys those? What do you think Binny's markup is?
It's funny. There's a platform called 750 where you can actually look up what the wholesale price of any specific wine is. And so we could look it up. I wouldn't be surprised if they bought those wines for $400. When I was offered the wine back in 2008, 2013, it was $400 wholesale. And I was running that casino, that big ass casino with 15 restaurants in it. And, they offered me 3 bottles back then, right? For that big of a property. So so I'm in the back of this wine room with this guy, and they can't fucking find the wine. They're like looking in wooden cases,
you think they were
opening
just
up bags. With you? No, this was like any hourly employee who's like, oh, well, if we can't find it, I really like this wine over here, Opus One. I'm like, bro, look. I was like, I am flying to Chicago, right, from Tampa for Opus One, my friend. I'm not leaving until you find Soldera, brother. All right? I slept in a shitty hotel last night. It was a solid 58 degrees because the heater doesn't work. I am not leaving here without Soldera in my cold, dead hand. So it was like 30 minutes of them going back and forth. And the manager wasn't there, of course, because who is...
You're starting to shake. You're starting to get a little bit...
Oh, dude, I was nervous. So I'm like, I'm going to walk away. I'm going to go look at your nuts section for a second. See all the different types of cashews and whatnot that you sell on the way out. You know what I mean? Like, I think you go to a supermarket and M&M's is like what the eye candy they give you on the aisle. But in this case, they had like 58 flavors of cashew, right? So I'm like, let me divert my attention so that I don't go into an existential crisis as to why the fuck I'm in the middle of a suburb of Chicago without the wine that I shouldn't have ordered to begin with, because this is extravagant. And my father, if he were alive, would totally lose his shit to know that he endured years in the Catholic Church so that I could turn around and dump money on highly allocated Italian, not even a Spanish wine, an Italian wine. Anyway.
That's what we get him.
Yeah. So
it sounds like it's worth it to me in a way for a person like you. Sounds like it's a worthwhile thing.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't have done it otherwise, but it's the only time I've ever done something like this, right? I've driven an hour to like a cool store.
You broke the seal now. Now you're going to be all over it. Now you're going to be like the Solterra collector hunting.
So they finally find the wines, which is fantastic.
You're going to call me tomorrow from like New Mexico or something.
Yeah. Well, dude, what's funny is they're like, oh, we found the wines. And like, I almost shit. I was like, just that moment of like, oh my God. It's like when you just barely avoid an accident and you feel like dopamine just like rush over your body. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm alive. In this case, it was like, the wines are here, right? So I like open up this box, and it was in like a weird box. It was in like a Bankers Club vodka box, right? So like it wasn't in the box it was supposed to be in. It was,
Gotcha.
But I didn't care. The wines were there. So I look at them. They're beautiful. I got bottles numbered 25, 26, and 27. They have
they're numbered.
They're numbered. Yes.
Out of how many? How many do you think
I
were
think
in that?
1,200. I think they made 1,200 that entire vintage, the whole year.
Holy shit. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So I like hold on to them, and I pretend like I'm not like
a junkie.
Yeah. So they hand it over. I'm like, oh, thanks so much. And I like try to brush it off as if, but I like literally walked outside the store and I was like, fuck yeah. Like I turned into an Eagles fan. Oh, I was like, like I had it in my hands. My bottles of Solterra, right? For me.
How long do you think this quest? You said you were trying to order it at your hotel days in 2013. So this has been a long journey for you to get to the point where you own it yourself.
This has been a decades long. And here's the thing. Of course, you can find Solterra. It's just really overpriced.
Mm-hmm.
I've even been on auction. Well, put it like this, Tone. So there was an auction last month, which was Joe Bastianich, his seller, right? And Lydia Bastianich's son and Mario Batali's partner. There was this auction of his wine cellar, and he had all kinds of Solterra in there, 3-bottle lots, 6-bottle lots. Dude, I was just watching to see, and these wines go on auction for $1,000 a bottle plus. So I was like, I am not, no way. I'm not paying that, right? I'm not that addicted. But in this case, of course, for the price, I was like, I gotta fly across the country.
Like, there's an element to this that it's a collector's-ish kind of fanboy kind of a thing, right? Because wine can only get so good, right? So that's
correct.
You have to.
It's about the experience,
right? You couldn't not know. You couldn't know not. What am I trying to say? You know the story. You know the culture. You know it's about the embodiment of all that, not just taste this. It's worth $4,000. Do you like it?
No, right? Exactly. It's a unique, for me, it's a unique piece of wine history. And it's also, when you share that with close friends or people who appreciate wine, it's a shared experience that's really hard to replicate because it's so incredibly expensive. And trust me, $450 is fucking expensive. It's the most I've ever spent on a bottle of wine. But
does it go well with curry scented cashews? Was it good? Were you trying not to open the bottle in the janky ass hotel room?
And listen,
use a little plastic cup they have there in the bathroom.
No, I wouldn't.
That would be a real addict. You just couldn't.
Yeah.
Like popping it in your car and filling it up.
Yeah, no. I certainly, cup. In this case, it was very important to me. one, it's going to go into the wine cellar, and I'm going to wait to enjoy it, right? And two, it's got to be with friends. You don't drink that kind of wine by yourself.
What kind of experience are you looking forward to like pop that? Of course, you're going to sit on it for a while. You just like having it. You just want to keep it there. But what could you see as the experience that you'd want to like? All right, let's pop a bottle of this.
Let's say I buy my first house and I have a big
that
dinner
kind of a
party
thing.
with friends,
Gotcha.
or it's just like it's an occasion where wine people are coming together and everybody's bringing a cool bottle, or whatever. Like it's the moment is the opening with friends.
What
right?
would you want the menu to be on that day?
Oh, so in this case, in Tuscany, right? If it grows with it, it goes with it is kind of the moniker that a lot of people go by, and I tend to agree with it because obviously there's history and tradition and a melding of the cultural kind of food world in terms of this stuff. And some things that I'd really enjoy having specifically with a Brunello or Sangiovese from Tuscany would be, of course, bistecca fiorentina, right? A big bone and chop. I mean, this wine is going to be tannic, so it'll dry your mouth. It'll be excellent with fatty foods. It'll be excellent with protein. But it's going to be a full, elegant and soft and red cherry and probably some savory notes like mushroom and tomato leaf and things like that. But it's
Tomato
going
leaf?
to be,
That's a new one. Tomato leaf. I get where you're going.
Yeah.
I understand though. I get it.
Yeah. It's a savory character to the wine
That
that is very
kind of
classic
green punch in the face.
yes, fruit, of course, like sour red cherry and maybe some raspberry, but it'll also should beautiful silky texture. It's going to be it's like it's an experiential wine. It's all about, I love smelling the wine just as much as I love to taste the wine, right? So it's gonna be great. And these are wines that usually evolve with time. So you open it at, let's say, 12 o'clock, it's completely different wine by 4 o'clock because the wine evolves in the glass and stuff. And Sangiovese and Italian wines in general have that character to them where over time they'll evolve.
So do you like to taste it along the way or wait for it to be open for a certain amount of time? Okay.
I would taste it right away when I opened it and probably check in on it every hour or so. And then at some point, let's say 3 hours in, it should really be singing, right? A wine like that is one where I would pop it, maybe get a champagne going to start, or a nice little white berg, or and then enjoy that other wine while the Soldera is either decanted or at least open, right, so that it can kind of stretch its legs.
I had a question on that. Like, just opening the bottle, does that have enough interaction with the air to like do its thing, or decanting it, sometimes I think is confused with like just aerating it versus actually separating it from the sediments.
Correct.
Like decanting
Yes,
traditionally be like you're separating from the sediments, you're looking through the candle and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you just fill up a decanter to aerate the wine. And what would you do with this?
So it's a very interesting question, Tony, because I know some sommeliers. I actually had a great dinner with a friend, Jessica Waugh, in Vegas, and she was kind enough to bring this excellent Borgogna 1982 Reserva Barolo to dinner, which happened to be my birth year, and it was just a fucking awesome dinner we had together. And she specifically asked the sommelier at the Emerald Steakhouse where we ate not to decant the wine. Why? Because she enjoys, in this case, with a very special wine, to see how the wine evolves over the dinner, right? Maybe in the beginning, it's more about fruit, and then halfway through, it becomes more about mushroomy notes and like secondary notes. And by the end, it's more like about tomato leaf, or like, there was this really interesting kind of, if porcini was left in the library to dry, you know what I mean? Like that dusky.
Left in the come on. God.
But so the wine will definitely evolve, and so when you aerate a wine,
wait. Porcini left in the library to dry has to be the maximum top of wine descriptions. That has to be it. It can't get any crazier than that. Porcini left in the library to dry. Yowza. All right. Specific. I like it.
Well, if it
But
was a
that's it.
shiitake,
We
it would
can't
have
get.
smelled differently, you know?
Gotcha.
So in this case, she wanted to keep the wine in the bottle. Now, wines are delicate, right? If you overexpose it to oxygen, it actually may lose some of its intensity. In this case, she actually just said, "Hey, I just want to see how the wine evolves over the dinner," which I thought was cool.
Right.
And I think it's really a personal preference, and sometimes it's, I might open up. So Ronnie is not a big guy for decanting unless it's to remove sediment, right?
Right.
And he's also somebody who likes to pop a bottle, let it hang out. Now, of course, if it's a super huge wine, say a Napa Cab, a young wine that is, it's just, the thing is this: a really big extracted wine might feel aggressive and clumsy, and by aerating it, you're actually softening it a little bit so it's more approachable to drink, because the oxygen interacts with the wine, and it kind of helps to release esters and polymers and stuff that are
There's
that
those
are in the
things.
juice,
I haven't seen them in
right?
a long time, but they used to put on the neck of the wine that would aerate it while you're pouring it, right? Are those
Yes.
still widely used?
I,
Is it a
I
poo-poo
don't.
thing? You
I
poo-poo that?
personally don't often see them, but they are certainly out there.
Yeah.
They're certainly out there. So yeah, so I would probably pop the bottle, taste it, see how it's doing, right? And if it's really like closed off and not very generous in its nose, and you don't smell a bunch of fruit or a bunch of secondary notes or whatever, then we might elect to decant it to see if it helps loosen up the wine's generosity in terms of how much it smells and how much it tastes, right?
Mm-hmm.
A big thing lately too is there's a lot of what people call a reductive style of white wine making, where the wine itself doesn't interact much with oxygen during its entire fermentation process and when it's bottled. So it's very, very, what they say, reductive or closed, tight, right? So there are many wines that benefit, white wines that benefit from a little time in the decanter, so that the oxygen helps to open up its aromas, right? So it's not just red wines that should potentially be decanted. It's also
Interesting.
white wines. Yeah.
Especially wines that are made in that fashion. And there wouldn't be anything on the label necessarily that would instruct you
No,
as to its
not
flavor.
necessarily. No. In some cases, it's, it's producer by producer, it's region by region, it's styles, right? Like for example, Rouleau is a producer from Burgundy. It's very famous. Also another kind of unicorn producer, very hard to get. And a lot of times we'll do that. We'll decant that wine so that it's really showing its best. Let's say, as it opens up in the canner. So anyway, if I'm gonna make the menu, I want porcinis with this wine, some sort of truffle risotto, or some sort of like nice truffle.
I'm surprised about that. I'm surprised you'd want the kind of the competing truffleness.
Well,
the competing
in this
truffle
case,
aroma and
just
stuff with the wine. Or you just want something big and something to celebrate.
Flavorful and intense in flavor. Listen, I'll eat good mushrooms any time of the day, any meal, with any wine. White Burgundy, Riesling, I don't care. I love mushrooms.
I get that in the porcini side of things, but the truffle mushroom, look, it's delicious. I'm just surprised that would be something that you would want to go with this experience, but it makes sense to me. I would want it too, but it seems like it might compete with the wine a little bit.
I believe, Tony, in this case, that you want competing flavors so that they really accentuate each other, right? Like,
okay, makes sense.
I don't want to just have like a piece of grilled chicken with this so that I'm only talking about the wine. I want a bite of whatever, porcini with foie gras, and go, man, that's delicious. And then, like a proper overfed, disgusting king. That's how you want to eat, right?
All right. I'll take care of the menu.
Squab with cherries.
I'll do a menu. How much was a bottle? $450. $450. We have $450 to spend on the food. to match the wine
Sweet.
per bottle. So you let me know when this event is, and how many people are going to be there, how many bottles we're going to use, and we'll do $450 per couple or whatever you think.
It sounds like OverSeasoned TV dinner episode.
There we go.
Oh yeah, this sounds great.
You're just looking for a way to write off make this wine a company expense. I know it. You're like, yes, I'm going to put in for that reimbursement.
Well, considering it's like, nah, it'll be worth it to die with the memory, right? I'm sure at some point on my deathbed, it'll be like, man, that was a great dinner.
Right on. Let's do it. And do you still have the alert on your phone? So are you going to jump on the next batch that comes through if it's in the right price range for you? Or once you've scratched this itch, what's next to scratch? What else would you do beyond this? What's next? If you've slayed this dragon.
I don't have any Vegas Sicilia, so there's some certain vintages of that I'd love to get. I don't have any Dugat P. That's another great producer that I want to get before it. So there's a solid
nice deep
20.
Right.
Yeah. There's a solid.
The thing with these though, it's only going to get crazier. Now that you've crossed this barrier, there's just going to be another barrier to cross. You'll just be traveling further and spending more with the next ones. Just want you to be prepared. It's going to happen.
Okay.
That's the way these things go.
Yeah, fair enough. Was that
more dinner parties for us?
That's true. Yes. It's all about the dinner parties. So you will benefit by my compulsion. Don't worry.
Looking forward to it.
Soldera for all. I can't wait to enjoy it with you, Tony. Thanks for joining us on the OverSeasoned podcast. And I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday season.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
OverSeasoned podcast was brought to you by Over Easy Office, outsourced bookkeeping solution.